Good evening. Last time I spoke about the third Vipallasa, the third distortion of perception, which is seeing what is without a self, anatta, as a self, atta. And this particular insight into the not self or emptiness is the central insight in the Buddha's liberating teaching, and was a new teaching at his time. When the Buddha was walking the earth in Iron Age India, this teaching on emptiness and not self was a new teaching. And he was saying that by way of this insight, the 10 fetters which bind us to the will of becoming, to the will of samsara, are permanently cut. And I've been going over those 10 fetters recently. But what it's basically saying, this teaching on the 4 Vipallasa, is if we see deep into any of these 4 Vipallasa, they all lead to this insight into the not self or emptiness nature of experience, into the process nature of all phenomena. Instead of phenomena being things, what we see very clearly now, they are processes. They're like rivers. Like, for example, this crystal here looks like a separate thing, but if we really investigate, we see it's a process which is coming together every moment and changing slowly. So the insight in the first 2 Vipallasa, which are seeing what is impermanent as permanent and seeing what is painful as pleasant, these 2 lead us directly to the 3rd Vipallasa, to the clear seeing of not self, because we begin to understand the process nature of all phenomena and experience the vulnerability which becomes conscious through this insight. And today we have arrived at the 4th Vipallasa, which is seeing what is not beautiful, asubha, as beautiful, subha. And this insight is based on the first of the 4 establishments of mindfulness, on the 4 Satipatthana, which is called Kayanupassana, Kaya meaning body in the Pali language. And it has 3 practices. The practice on the body parts, which we have been doing, and we have been doing the 3 body parts: bones, flesh and skin. We have been doing 5 body parts: hair of the head, hair of the body, skin, teeth and nails. That's the 5 body parts, which we're gonna do today, also later. And then the meditation on the elements we have been doing many times. And then the 3rd one is contemplation of death, or contemplation of corpses in different stages of decay. That's the 3rd one of these practices. Contemplation on death we have also been doing. So those 3 practices are all showing us, or kind of ushering us towards realizing not self. And additionally, contemplation on death also can give us a sense of urgency for setting priorities in our lives. And then additionally, these 3 practices on the body can also help us to cool down infatuation with other bodies, if it becomes obsessive, by showing us a different facet of the body, which can be easily overlooked, when we are under the influence of strong sexual desire. It helps us to come into balance. And then from there we can make choices that are leading us in the direction we wish to go. It's not a value judgment in terms of good and bad, and also not a denial of beauty, but showing us the full spectrum, showing us the whole spectrum of what makes a body. And then also showing us, clearly that my body and the body of others are extremely vulnerable coming together of causes and condition. And there is in particular one chant, on the 33 parts of the body, which I would like to share with you, which show us, that the body is actually not a single thing, but a coming together of many different parts, and things can go wrong. And the miracle that it works at all, that we can meet in this way, to kind of get an insight into what is hidden, from plain view. And also seeing, how the mind makes up a certain perception, and just kind of not acknowledges many other things which are actually very important to consider. And if any of us, have been ill for a long time or several times, we have been pushed towards realizing that more deeply. And this meditation, was also designed, I think, to help, young monastics, which are often, under the influence of sexual desire, of course, because it's natural, to help them, to cool it down. And also, kind of showing the vulnerability as fully as possibly comfortable. And that is totally necessary for transformation and to really connect with the vulnerability of what it means to have a body. And then, from that vulnerability, still being able to hold steady and staying here and not needing to go somewhere else in the mind. And in that way, we slowly move through perceived limitations and open and expand perception and being able to allow more life, to land in us. Because that stretching, creates cracks through which new insights can emerge. And that's, one reason why we are together, to support each other in tolerating the dawning of a new reality. As the old paradigm is starting to break apart because things are no longer working in the same way they have been working in the past. We support each other in this island of coherence, pocket of sanity, to hold steady and come back, every Wednesday and be together in the stretch of it, in the acknowledgement of it, and allowing that to do the work on us. Because, for a long time, our Western cultures have been believing, that we are living on the planet like on a stage. And now the planet has joined us on a much larger stage. And the planet acts and gives instructions to us. So to kind of come out of that old worldview into the new takes a lot of exposure, really. Exposure to how it really is. And sensing and feeling into that. And undergo that rewiring. So attuning to what is already underway. Reality is already teaching us, but to really be able to stay close to that teaching, requires that we manage our attention, we organize attention and attune to what is underway. And the greatest obstacle is self-doubt, really. And this is why it is really a very skillful step, is to start with our own bodies, because that's not like far away from us. We are directly here with our own bodies, and these bodies already display not self. They already display impermanence. They already display all of the things we are talking about. And bringing the precision which is needed, which comes from devotion, from devotion to what is underway, from wanting to be part of the immune system, acting as a channel for this new way of being on Earth to come through us and also, affect others. So, let's start with the guided meditation now. And, please find a posture you can sustain. And sensing your weight of your body on the cushion, on the chair. And fully arriving here in the Zoom room. And noticing who is here with you. And also, noticing what you're bringing here today. Maybe there's a tiredness or excitement or anxiety. Whatever you're bringing here today, or maybe you're just at ease and relaxed. And also maybe shortly reflecting on, why have you come here today? What motivates you to practice? What motivates you to turn towards Earth as teacher? At a time where there's a lot of changes going on. For many of us, not just in our personal lives, but also in our culture, where we see the limitations of the old paradigm and the vulnerability and the uncertainty that brings. And then coming back to our bodies as a resting place for the mind, because those bodies already display emptiness and not self. And they are the perfect expression for that. It's so easily overlooked. So the miracle of these bodies is just a vignette of the miracle of Earth, of planet Earth, and the miracle of the cosmos itself. So there's a sensing in our own bodies and our own minds that urge to evolve and respond. By making ourselves available and the devotion and reverence, which is needed for this process to connect fully. So, allowing the mind to rest on the body just as the body rests on the cushion. And then we can use the meditation on the 5 body parts today, which is part of the novice ordination for monks and nuns. And it's just like a repetition of these 5 body parts which meets the eye, which is when we look from the body from outside, we can see those 5 parts. And I'm just gonna guide us through that now, like using it like a mantra. Kesa, hair of the head. And just allowing the perception to arise in your awareness. Loma, hair of the body. Naka, nails. Danta, teeth. Tacho, skin. And sensing into those parts. Skin, tacho. Danta, teeth. Naka, nails. Loma, hair of the body. Kesa, hair of the head. Kesa, hair of the head. Loma, hair of the body. Naka, nails. Danta, teeth. And tacho, skin. Tacho, skin. Danta, nails. Tanta, teeth. Naka, nails. Loma, hair of the body. And Kesa, hair of the head. So that's how the body appears, from the outside to us. And the rest is what we, make of it, really. The whole cultural and individual projections we bring with us. What is beautiful and what isn't beautiful, and color of the skin has a big influence on perception, which has created great systems of oppression and injustice. So just seeing the tremendous distortion of perception which happens all the time, and how important it is to question into that. And then the miracle that it's working in the first place, that we can be here, that we can show up in this way. It's not a judgment, but it's just showing the full spectrum. And through that, breaking through the delusions. Delusions of control and loosening the greed for domination. and sensing into the body, into the torso in particular, but also the shoulders and arms and legs. How does it feel to be in contact with this different way of looking? What does it do? Does it create a crack in the old way of looking? That's what we want to happen. And the vulnerability which comes through that crack. Which can, support us to bring forth more devotion and reverence for this process. And with that, more capacity for precision and willingness to be with this process. So just sensing and feeling into the torso and the legs and arms. The aliveness. The vitality and vibrancy. And I'd just like to share with you a classic reflection on the 32 parts of the body, which is, part of the monastic training. I'm just going to read that out for you. And that speaks about, all of the bits and pieces of the body, how it was reflected upon at the time of the Buddha. And it starts like this. This which is my body, from the soles of the feet up and down from the crown of the head, is a sealed bag of skin filled with unattractive things. And then there's this list of these unattractive things. And I read them in Pali and in English. Ati imasaminkaye. In this body there are kesa, hair of the head, loma, hair of the body, naka, nails, danta, teeth, tacho, skin, mangsang, flesh, naharu, sinus, ati, bones, ati minchang, bone marrow, vakang, kidneys, hadayang, heart, yakanang, liver, kilomangkang, membranes, bihakang, spleen, papasang, lungs, antang, bowels, antagunang, entrails, utaryang, undigested food, karisang, excrement, pitang, bile, senghang, phlegm, pubo, bas, lohitang, blood, sedo, sweat, medo, fat, asu, tears, vasa, grease, kelo, spittle, singanika, mucus, lasika, oil of the joints, mutang, urine, matalunganti, brain. This then, which is my body, from the soles of the feet up and down from the crown of the head, is a sealed bag of skin filled with unattractive things. So this is the chant, which is not a value judgment, but it's just one way of looking at the body. Surely not the only one, but it's one way which can help us to see more clearly. See not self more clearly. By cooling down, infatuation with the beauty of bodies or the sexual attraction of bodies, or, the youthfulness of bodies. It's just one way of interrupting a certain habit of mind for the benefit of seeing clearly, not as a value judgment. So now, we are aware that this body consists of so many parts, and all of these parts, are made up of the elements. And, have been built through eating, drinking, and breathing. And it's said, that about all 7 years, all elements in the body are replaced. build anew and go down the drain in the bathroom. So just allowing that way of looking to stun us into opening, into letting go. Because the mind can't really think its way around all of this. But it can open and allow this to be what it is. Doesn't need to have a name. But it's a knowing which goes really deep. And opens us to a more direct contact which is beyond or underneath the thinking mind. The thinking mind is a good support for moving to that, moving closer to experience, but then thinking mind has to bow out and allow awareness to directly know. That's how the cutting through of the 10 fetters happens, through this direct knowing. And we can continue with the meditation by imagining your body and the room where you are sitting. Imagining all of that being made of earth. All of the elements together make up what we call earth, or in America it's called sometimes dirt, or can be called soil, humus. Imagining your body and everything in the room where you are sitting being made of earth, because it all has emerged of earth. So, no more colors and no more details, but everything just made of earth. The whole body and the computer, the table, the cushion, the walls of the room, the windows, everything made out of earth, because it has all arisen from earth. Even the windows, which we can see through outside, are made out of earth. Certain parts, processed in a particular way. And then, allowing all of the details to collapse into flat earth. Like a disc. Limitless, going out in all direction, all details, all colors, everything disappears into that perception of earth, stretching in all directions. Just earth, made of earth element, water element, fire element, wind element and space element. Just earth. So a oneness, perceptual totality, independence on perception of earth. An abstract concept, which can help the mind to settle with the simplicity of that perception of earth. So everything around us is just earth, including our bodies. And that's, a meditation the Buddha is teaching in a meditation which is called Descent into Emptiness. In the Majjhima Nikaya 121, the Chula Sunyata Sutta, the short exposition on emptiness, on not self. And he compares it with the hide of a bull, cattle, a bull, which is stretched out with 100 pegs on the ground. So, stretching perception in this way by simplifying it, just earth. And allowing the mind to settle and also take in the truth of that. Everything we can see has emerged out of Earth and is part of Earth as a planet, as a process. There's not a single item in our lives which has not come from Earth. And for a long time, the consciousness in the Western cultures in particular was under the influence of the assumption that we are separate from Earth and that we can dominate and extract Earth for our purposes. And that is now ending, that way of looking, because the Earth is calling us to shift into a more mature participation, because that's the way it needs to kick in now. That's the next evolutionary assignment which emerges into these human bodies. And we can open to that and greet it, welcome it, or try to struggle ourselves back into the past, and it's just not going to happen. So much better option is to, through reality checks like this, enlisting the willingness, of our mind and of our bodies to drop deeper into reality. Because there's just simply no other way to go. And, and handling and dealing with all of the vulnerability and fear and anxiety and confusion and exhilaration and excitement which that brings, that new way of looking, the possibility of it and the scariness of it. It all belongs, and it's all necessary for the transformation to happen, because it's, it's kind of kneading us like a dough. And we can feel it, in the torso in particular, in the guts. And rather than distracting ourselves from it, we can welcome it. It's the better way to go, because there is no escape. The only escape is to go through it, to go into it and through it. And trusting. Trusting the bigger picture, not just blindly trusting, but through being informed in this way. And knowing beyond any doubt that this is really true, these bodies and all our possessions, including the city, the village, the country where we are sitting in, is all part of Earth, and all of the infrastructures, everything is made of Earth. So, connecting with the boundlessness, the limitlessness of that expanse. And listening into the spaciousness which doesn't end anywhere. Boundless space. This universe, this cosmos is expanding at this point in history. And listening into that expansiveness, into the silence, the aliveness, the mystery of all of this. And we have the Buddha's teaching to stabilize us as we are surrendering more and more to this process. By, letting go of those fetters which keeps us stuck in the distortions of perception. So letting go of those burdens, that's why we practice. And that knowing, this direct knowing, which cannot be captured in words. But it can be experienced individually by the wise, as the Buddha says. And it's an accumulation of insight, which then lets go into a deeper reality when the time is there. And I brought a poem by Mary Oliver, which I'm going to read out for the end of the meditation. You don't have to be good. You don't have to walk on your knees for 100 miles through the desert repenting. You only have to let the soft animal of your body laugh what it laughs. Tell me about despair, yours, and I will tell you mine. Meanwhile, the world goes on. Meanwhile, the sun and the clear pebbles of the rain are moving across the landscapes, over the prairies and the deep trees, the mountains and the rivers. Meanwhile, the wild geese, high in the clean blue air, are heading home again. Whoever you are, no matter how lonely, the world offers itself to your imagination. Calls to you like the wild geese, harsh and exciting, over and over announcing your place in the family of things. Over and over announcing your place in the family of things.